Hello, good morning, students of class 12th Commerce. Welcome to Panda Sir's virtual class on development economics. And today, our topic of discussion is agricultural development. Yesterday, we discussed about the role of planning commission and the objectives of planning commission. And today, according to the suggestion, the planning commission made an elaborate study of the condition of the situation of different sector of Indian economy, and after collecting and analyzing a lot of data, what changes they prescribed we will be discussing in our next few classes, that's also sector wise. Before starting that, students, let me tell you, if you look at the different development models followed by different countries in the world, then obviously one thing that you will find in common in all the development models, that in the starting phase of development, all economies concentrate on the primary sector, that is agricultural sector. Unless we have a developed primary or agricultural sector, we cannot think about development of secondary and tertiary sector, that is industrial and service sector. That's why our planners, the planners of India, they in the year 1950, they first just tried to develop the primary sector, that is the agricultural sector. And what are the changes they suggested to bring in the agricultural sector? And as you know, when the British left India in the year 1947, the condition of agricultural sector was not very prosperous. Though India was adopting commercialization of agriculture, but still the condition, the overall output, the employment opportunities were not enough, and a huge amount of disguised unemployment was there in the primary or agricultural sector. You know, more than 70% of our workforce were engaged in agriculture, but when we calculate the GDP during that time, then what we find is that even if we remove some of the people or some of the workforce from the primary sector, then the total productivity is in no way is going to be disturbed. This is the phenomenon of disguised unemployment. That is, the marginal contribution of some of the levers are zero. And in the production process, if you remove suppose 5 levers and the total product is intact, is not changing, then those 5 levers who are removed are said to be disguisedly unemployed. So it was a permanent phenomenon in Indian agricultural or primary sector, disguised unemployment. So the planners tried to bring some changes, and their suggested changes can be discussed under 3 headings. The first one is technical changes, the second one is institutional changes, and the third one is general factors. So today we are going to discuss about the suggested technical changes by our planners. So in the agricultural sector, so as far as technology is concerned, what were the suggestions of our planners to bring in the agricultural sector? Students, the agricultural sector was revolutionized, means a revolutionary change came in the productivity in the overall sphere of the agricultural sector when the XIV seeds were introduced. XIV seeds, it stands for high yielding variety of seeds. High yielding variety of seeds are quite different from the traditional seeds that Indian farmers used to use. That traditional seeds, their productivity was very low, but even though their cost of production is less, but the total productivity was very low when farmers used a traditional seed. So it was the hard work and much research of our scientists, agricultural scientists, that they invented XIV seeds, which brought a revolutionary change in the agricultural productivity of India. So here we are going to discuss some of the points which are the benefit of introduction of XIV seeds and some of the points which are the drawbacks of the introduction of XIV seeds. First, the benefits that we received by introducing XIV seeds. The first one is more production of food grain. Because it was a high yielding variety, then the average production of this seed was much more than the traditional seed. So, in this way, India became self-sufficient in the production of food grain when XIV seed was introduced. This is one of the plus points. The second one is increasing the level of income and employment. Obviously, when agriculture became profitable, so more and more people were attracted towards the agricultural sector and they started doing farming. That means more employment results in more income. That means the overall the aggregate level of employment and income increased, and the problem of disguised unemployment, what just we discussed, was to a very large extent it was solved. Then the third point is rise of industrial sector. So when the productivity increased, obviously the industrial sector, that for example the producing food grain comes in the primary sector or agricultural sector, but when we established a machine and we thresh or we grind wheat and make flour out of that wheat, it's an activity that belongs to the industrial sector. So due to more production, but when the farmers used traditional seed, the production was very low and they could grind the wheat at their home using traditional technology. But now because we have more food grain, even we increased our total production of food grain so much that we started exporting it. So in such a case, we need sophisticated technology for the processing of food grain, and then in this way the industrial sector also prospered due to the introduction of XIV seeds. These 3 points are the plus points of introduction of XIV seeds. Now come to the drawbacks of the introduction of XIV seeds. The first point is more fertilizers and pesticides. The traditional, when we are using traditional seeds, we need to apply the minimum amount of pesticides, even no amount of pesticides, and very little of fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. But because the XIV seeds are high yielding variety, they require more nutrients and more chemical fertilizer along with more pesticides, because they are prone to diseases which is not present there in case of traditional seeds. So introduction or use of more fertilizer and pesticides, obviously after a duration of time it would start degrading the soil quality, and that results in more soil pollution. The soil, the environment became polluted due to the introduction of XIV seeds. It is yet another drawbacks of the XIV seeds. Then the third point is increase in cost of production. Because we need to use more fertilizer, we need to use sophisticated technology, we need to use more pesticides. That's why the overall production cost also increased. And then the fourth one is gap between rich and poor widened. Just to try to understand this term is something technical. How and why the gap between rich and poor increased due to the introduction of XIV seeds. See students, when we are using XIV seeds, we need to spend more or invest more, which is not possible in case of marginal or very poor laborers, or people or farmers who are having very small holding. They cannot afford to use XIV seeds. So they could not get the benefit of the XIV seeds, whereas the large farmers, the farmers who are having a more quantity of land, they could afford to use the XIV seeds, and their economic conditions started rising, but the poor farmers' economic conditions started falling. In this way, the gap between rich and poor was widened. These 4 points are the drawbacks of the introduction of XIV seeds. But because our prime goal, the planners' prime goal was to make India self-reliant, self-sufficient in the production of food grain. That's why, despite having so many drawbacks, we cannot afford to stop the use of XIV seeds. That's why here the government intervention is required, and the government did intervene. And what the government did to neutralize the drawbacks, that developing rural credit system. Earlier, banks or other loan providing organizations were not taking much interest in agricultural sector, because as the fact says that Indian agriculture is always has been a gamble of monsoon. If monsoon is good, then crop is good, profit is there. And if there is bad monsoon, then there is no profit, even they would not get even what they have invested in return. Thus, it became the duty of the government to develop the credit system, rural credit system especially, where the loan or the credit was given to marginal or very small farmers at a very lower rate of interest, so that they can afford the cost involved in the production of in the use of XIV seeds. And the next point is giving subsidies. They started giving subsidies to rural to purchase fertilizer, to purchase subsidies, to purchase pesticides, and to purchase capital equipments that are used in agricultural sector, like power tiller and combine harvesters and tractors, etc. So here the government gave subsidy to farming sector regarding or in case of fertilizers, pesticides, and capital equipment used in agricultural sector. But among the economists of our country, it's a great debate that whether subsidies should be there or not. Some economists prefer that or support the subsidy, whereas some other economists say that no, subsidy should not be given. So, people are economists who support subsidy. They say that in order to make the farmers acquainted with sophisticated technology and the XIV seeds and its productivity, we need to give them subsidy, or else they cannot afford to do that. But on the other hand, people who don't support the subsidy system, what they say is that they say mainly 2 points. The first one is that after a given period, subsidy should be eliminated. That means in the starting phase, the farmers should be given subsidies for the purchasing of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and capital equipments. But once they become acquainted with the system, then subsidy should be stopped. Giving subsidy should be stopped. And the second point what they argue is that the entire subsidy that is meant for the poor farmer or farming sector never goes 100% to that sector only, because some other people also get the benefit of the subsidies. For example, the organization or the unit that is producing fertilizer get benefits from the subsidy given to the farmers. The organization that is producing pesticides, the organization that is producing capital goods. So all these things comes in the industrial sector. So the subsidy that is designed by government to divert towards the agricultural sector is getting leaked, and some part of that subsidy is going to undesirable sector like industrial sector. That is their argument when they say against the system of subsidy. So this is all about the agricultural development and the technical changes that was brought in our agricultural sector. And tomorrow we will be discussing about institutional changes and general factor. So once again I repeat you, go through the books and notes, and if you are getting any doubt, then never feel shy to contact me. And of course, we are going to use Google Meet, and tomorrow in between 10 to 11, 1 hour, there will be doubt clearing session on economics and English, 2 subjects. So I request all the students to join the class, to join the conversation, and get ready with your doubts, so that very quickly you can tell me about your doubts and clarify your doubts. Thank you and have a nice day.